Hi everyone, Victoria here of Fit to Her Core. So I'm hopping on today to talk to you about 10 aches and pains that are associated with core weakness. Now, many of us have nagging aches and pains here and there, or chronic aches and pains that bother us that just seem to magically pop up out of nowhere, and we're not really sure why they happen or where they come from. But most likely, not all the time, but most likely, these aches and pains are often due because your core is not it's not able to produce enough stability. So, what I want you to understand from this talk is that, and I use this analogy all the time, is that your core is like the foundation of a house. If the foundation of a house is not strong, the rest of the house will be shaky and unstable and not a very strong built house. The same concept applies to your body. If your core is not strong, if it's not able to produce stability well enough, then the rest of your body will break down and lots of aches and pains will develop in different places that we don't even realize could be linked to a lack of core stability, like shoulder pain, upper back pain, lower back pain, knee and hip pain, problems with your feet. So I'm going to go over a few of these aches and pains so that you can understand how and why they are connected to a weak core. Okay, so the first one is sciatica. A lot of us uh, suffer from sciatica or sciatic pain. It's very common during pregnancy and early postpartum. And the reason why that is because during those times, and even not just early postpartum or pregnancy, you can be well postpartum, or you don't even have to have had children, and you still are suffering from sciatica. And that is because your core is not strong enough to stabilize and support your pelvis. So what happens is the muscles around the pelvis have to take over and tighten and hold tight to provide a false sense of stability because your core is not doing your job like you need it to. So therefore, you start to feel pain deep in the butt that can often lead down the back of your leg and down into your calf and into your foot. And I've had it before. If you've had it before, it is not fun. It is really annoying and it's painful. So, sciatica pain can very well be um, connected to a weak core. So, that's something to think about if you are someone that struggles with sciatica pain. The next thing is mid back pain. So, many times, us moms, especially, and in pregnancy, and again, you don't have to have had children. Many of us have upper back pain in between the shoulder blades and the upper back region. And oftentimes that can be linked back to because your core is not able to stabilize you and hold you up tall and elongate you against the force of gravity. So when you lack the core stability to hold you up nice and tall, then you quite honestly start to collapse onto yourself. So you start to have this collapsed posture of rounded shoulders, hunched upper back, forward head posture. Okay. So again, when your core is not able to engage throughout the day like we need it to and hold you up long and hold you up against the force of gravity and support your spine and pelvis, then your body basically collapses onto itself. So this could very well be a reason why you are dealing with mid back pain. Next one is lower back pain. Okay, this is a huge one with pregnancy and early postpartum, and even well into postpartum. And again, you don't even have to have had kids to struggle with lower back pain. This is like one of the biggest complaints of pain that people experience on a daily basis. And again, lower back pain very often is associated with a functional core weakness. So you have your transverse abs that are your deepest core muscle, and they wrap around your spine and your pelvis to provide like a corset stabilizing effect to again help hold you up and elongate your spine and keep you upright against the force of gravity. Now, when you don't have that naturally built-in brace from your transverse abs and the muscle is not aligned properly, so ribs over hips, it's not aligned properly, and it's not active enough during the day, then it feels like basically a deflated balloon. And if you've had kids and early postpartum, you look down at your core and you're like, what the heck happened? It has that feel of a deflated balloon. That's because your transverse abs yet haven't come back online yet. So again, that lack of stability that we need from the transverse abs, it brings about a collapsed posture and low back pain. And uh, because those transverse abs aren't able to support the spine and the pelvis like we need it to, your lower back muscles kick in and they hold really, really tight to help try and provide some stability where the core is not able to do that. Next thing is sacroiliac pain or instability. So the pelvis is where your core connects to the lower body, and a strong and active core wraps completely around the pelvis to hold it stable and symmetrical. So inactivity in the core, again, a core weakness or a functional core weakness, directly impacts the stability of the pelvis. So the pelvis starts to shift and move and get out of alignment. And this is where we can have trouble with the sacroiliac joint, brushing up against itself and pulling against itself. That creates pain. So the ligaments and the joint capsules of that SI joint are often not strong enough to stabilize without a solid corset muscle, the transverse abs again, and all the deeper core muscles of your um, thorax. When those muscles aren't able to provide stability to the pelvis, then that SI joint starts shearing against itself, and that can cause some SI pain as well. And that's when you feel like you have episodes of your back going out, and it can feel very painful and debilitating. So, if you suffer from this, again, you need to think about, well, what's my core stability like? Do I have a weak functional core? And maybe I need to work on that. Okay. The next thing is rib misalignment and instability. So, rib misalignment is very common in pregnancy. If you think about it, your body needs to create room for baby to grow. So, baby gets bigger, uterus gets bigger. You have all that amniotic fluid, extra blood, water, etc. It's all inside of your midsection, and everything is getting bigger, so it starts pushing up on the diaphragm and pushing up on the rib cage and causing the rib cage to expand and possibly the ribs to misalign. um, and again, other people who have not had kids can also develop a rib misalignment and instability. So what can happen is, again, your rib cage is where the core connects to the upper body, and a strong core wraps around, and it completely wraps around and connects the rib cage to the pelvis. Okay, so again, you want to think about that wrapping around corset effect from the rib cage to the pelvis. And an inactive core, so a weak core combined with um, upper body compensations, meaning poor postures, forward head posture, rounded shoulders, hunching forward. or any sort of upper body muscular imbalances, like if you have tightness in your upper back or tightness through your chest, that can also pull on the rib cage and misalign those ribs. And this can lead to sharp pain with deep breaths and difficulty moving the arms and the upper body. So, again, we need to be getting your center, your core stronger so that we can have your rib cage in better alignment and so we can have it stacked over the pelvis again and getting that rib cage down and into about a 90-degree angle so that the your infrasternal angle at about a 90 degree. So right here from your sternum and underneath your rib cage here, we want to bring those ribs in so that the core can do its job more. When the muscles of the core are getting pulled away from one another because you have a wide rib cage, then your core can't engage as much as we need it to. Okay. Next thing, urinary incontinence. So this is not just related to women who have had kids, but yes, women who are pregnant or who are postpartum very often develop um, urinary incontinence issues. And before I continue, I want you to understand that urinary incontinence is common, but it is not normal. And it is a sign that your core is not doing what we need it to be doing to support your bladder. Okay. So, your pelvic floor muscles also make up your core. You have your diaphragm on top, your pelvic floor on the bottom, your transverse abs, and some spinal muscles in the back. And all of these four muscles work together as a unit to support the spine and the pelvis. So if you can imagine your core as like a pressurized cylinder, that's one of the ways in how your core supports your spine, your pelvis, and all of the internal contents. So when your core is weak, this leads again to this deflated balloon presentation of the core and allows for extra pressure to push down onto the pelvic floor. And a weak core is almost always connected to a weak pelvic floor. And as a result, the bladder and your sphincters that help control your bladder are less supported. And this gives way to leakage when the body is stressed or the bladder is full. Okay. Pelvic organ prolapse, another common core and pelvic floor issue for women. So, a functional core, again, includes having the strength to hold up all of your internal organs all day inside the pelvis. When your core is weak and it gives way to gravity, then this allows for your pelvic organs to droop lower into the pelvis, which can cause pelvic organ prolapse. Now, there are other factors as to why pelvic organ prolapse occurs, but it's very often tied back to a weak core and too much pressure bearing down onto the pelvic floor muscles. Okay, so um, when your core is weak, if you don't, so if you're not able to produce the stability that we need it to, then you will start creating false stability by bracing, so holding your core like someone's about to punch you in the stomach, or breath holding. And those two mechanisms create too much intra-abdominal pressure, and it's pushing down onto the pelvic floor and contributing to pelvic organ prolapse symptoms. Next thing is neck pain, okay? Your body is a kinetic chain. It is all linked together. So if you are experiencing neck pain, this means that you are out of optimal alignment. So when your core is weak, again, your body starts to collapse onto itself and the body tends to round forward and you develop this C shape in your upper body. And this places the head too far forward and requires the muscles around the neck, so front and back, to hold tight to basically, your body thinks, to basically keep your head from falling off of your body. Okay. So when you don't have the core strength here, again, everything else has to compensate. So your head comes forward and all of this gets tight up here. So we need this to be holding you up against the pull of gravity and having everything nice and aligned and your body nicely stacked on top of itself so that you don't have neck pain. Okay. Now, this one you may not even really think at all is a result of a weak core. So, fallen arches. Yes, collapsed arches can be tied to a core that is weak. Again, your body is a chain. So, there's a chain reaction through your body when the muscles designed your core are the muscles that are designed, i.e., your core, to hold you up and hold you together. When they're failing to do their job, one of the ways that this causes fallen arches again is that everything collapses onto itself. So that includes your arches. So your torso rounds forward. So think of that collapse posture again. Your torso rounds forward, your tailbone tucks under, and it collapses your hips. So then your butt muscles become really tight to try and compensate, causing your hips to externally rotate. Never mind my cat's in the back. So it causes your hips to rotate, making you walk like a duck, and then your feet, as a result, have too much pressure on the internal portion of your feet. So the arches on the inside, instead of evenly distributed throughout your foot, so your arches start to gradually give way under strain from that collapsed posture. So this is, it's really something to think about if you are someone who deals with collapsed arches. Okay. And last but not least, the hip joints are impacted again by the alignment of your pelvis. Okay. And we go back to that strong core. When your core is not able to hold the pelvis in place, your pelvis can shift, and that causes the hip joints to change a little bit. So when one system fails to do its job, others in the area are directly impacted. So it's not uncommon if you have a weak core, to be dealing with sore, achy hips and clicking in your hips and even chronic hip stiffness, because again, what's happening is your core muscles are weak. So the muscles in your hips are having to take over and hold tight to create stability when your core is not able to produce the stability that we need it to. Okay. So I know I gave you a lot to think about, but this is all a lot of great food for thought to digest and think, maybe I really do need to do more work for my core beyond just a bunch of sit-ups and crunches and Russian twists and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it's time to dig deeper and really learn how to develop deep inner core strength so that your body can function like we need it to, without pain, without compensations and muscular imbalances. So that is it, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you would like to join me in my free postpartum core kickstart challenge, if you're a mom and you would like to join me in this challenge, the challenge starts July 20th. That's a Monday. And for 5 days, I will walk you through great tips to help you improve everyday core strength, to help you regain that functional core that we need you to have so that you can move through life without aches and pains and do everything that you want to do as a mom. And you will also be given 5 workouts, one each day, 5 core workouts that take no more than 10 to 15 minutes to do. And these workouts can be done anytime postpartum, and the challenge is also suitable for you whether you delivered vaginally or C-section. So I will drop the link in the description below, and I'd love to have you. But until then, I will talk to you all later. Bye.